Alright, now we're going to move on to the second of the basic instructions here, and that's going to be copying angles. You know that copying angles, unfortunately, are going to be a lot more difficult than copying line segments because, well, angles have a lot, angles are in 2 dimensions as opposed to 1. The nice part about the line segment is that there was only 1 dimension to really copy, and that was a length, so, that was easy to copy here. Here, we don't have that luxury because we have 2 things to worry about. So we're not exactly sure how to do this here. How am I going to take this angle and move it over here? I know y has to match up with y prime. That's the idea here. This vertex here has to match up with this vertex over here, but we're not exactly sure how to do that. Okay, so part of what makes construction so difficult is that if you have no idea what to start with, there's just basically nothing you can do. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this project here, and this is actually going to be something a technique that we'll be using throughout our discussion of geometric constructions here. We're going to look at the end step. We're going to look at the very last thing here and then go back. So basically what's going on here is we want something that kind of looks like this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out for this here so we can see this a little better. We want something that looks like this here. We want to copy this angle. So this red angle here, I'm going to go ahead and mark this in. I want this angle to be moved over there. So essentially what's going on here is, this black ink here represents what I start with. And what I want at the end is going to look something like this here. So I want this purple line here, right? So this is going to be our goal. And I want these 2 red angles to match. Okay. Now I'm not exactly sure how to do that here because, again, the purple, a line is easy. We know how to create lines. We need 2 points. The only problem is I have, and I have 1 point. That's y prime. Problem is I don't have another point. So I need to create some other point here. So we need to have some sort of point somewhere on this line. We don't know where, but we know it has to be there. Because in order for us to create the line, we need a second point to draw our line through. Okay, so, congruent angles. All right, we have 2 red angles. We know we want them to be congruent. Now, I don't know about you, but I've seen, there are many places I've seen this before. For instance, bisecting angles, right? That might be a possibility. Problem is, when you bisect the angles, the 2, the copy is right next door to its original, so it doesn't help very much here. Here, they're separated by some distance. But consider congruent triangles, right? Because you know that if you have 2 congruent triangles here, if we have 2 congruent triangles here, then, as long as we can make them congruent, we can do corresponding parts. Congruent parts is congruent here, right? So, consider this here. If I can somehow create a triangle like this, let me call this here A and B. I have a triangle YAB. If I can create triangle YAB here, and I can somehow transfer that triangle over here and create a new triangle Y prime, A prime, B prime, if I can get them to be congruent, if I can get that to happen, then we're in good shape. So that means we want an A prime here and we want a B prime here. So those 2 green things, we don't know where they are yet. But that gives us an idea here. If I can somehow take this triangle and kind of glue it from there to there, we're going to be in good shape here. Now, hold on a minute. Again, congruent triangles is great, but again, this brings us back to the idea of we don't know how to copy angles. We have no idea how to create congruent angles here. So, if there were only a way for us to construct congruent triangles without touching any angles, well, you would think to yourself, hold on, we've done angle, side angle, we've done angle, angle, side, we've done all those other things here, and those all involve angles, so we seem to be kind of stuck until you realize, wait a minute, there is something that exists. If you remember side, 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 right? Side, 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 I can get this to happen. I can get YA and YA prime to match. I can get YB and YB prime to match. And if I can get these to match here, we're in good shape. So notice that what we can do here is we can kind of take this triangle and copy it side by side and move it all the way into the new triangle here. And I know how to do this because we know how to copy segments now. We know that exists. So notice that what we can kind of do here is that we can kind of, so I'm kind of in this situation here. So the entire strategy behind this was me trying to put together, what the goal would have looked like here and then try to figure out a way to get to the goal using what we already know. And this you're going to see a lot of here. Many of our constructions, especially further down the line, will involve being able to put together constructions that we've done in the past. So now that we have this here, this is going to be sort of our imagined spot. This is going to be what we want to see here. So I'm going to keep this here. Okay, so this is going to be, we're going to keep this in mind as we now go back here. So now we can actually try to figure out how to do this construction thingy here, okay? We want to try to figure out how to do this construction thingy here. Okay, so we need to get this picture to show up in some way here. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, I guess, is to draw a triangle, right? Because the whole reason behind this was constructing a triangle here. Now, again, we can construct a triangle, we can make it however big we want here, but notice that by doing something like this here, we have complete freedom as to which triangle we can choose here. So for instance here, right, I like to reduce the number of steps that I can use to sort of bring things together. So one thing that we can try to do is, okay, maybe we can construct a specific type of triangle so we don't have to copy so many lengths. Now, it'd be great if we can use an equilateral triangle. The only issue is that this may not be 60, right? But we can very easily create an isosceles triangle. We can say that this here is isosceles, right? We can create it that way. That means YB and YA should be congruent here. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, YB and YA, well, we can do that here very easily, right? Because I can create something like that here. I can create YB and YA to be congruent to one another by simply making sure that I use the same radius here. So basically, I can set this radius to whatever I want. I'll start on Y, and I can do this by simply just drawing an arc like so. Oh, sorry, folks. There we are. There we are. Okay. So we can construct an arc like this here. And notice how this is going to be so in this situation here, this is going to be step 1, and this is going to be any radius we want. Notice that, remember how I mentioned before in one of the previous videos that we create points by intersecting lines and angles here, lines and arcs here, or intersecting things like that. We've got intersection points here. So this can be our A, and this can be our B here, right? So that's what we have. So now we kind of have our triangle here, our phantom triangle YAB. We don't need to draw it in, but it's there. So now I can go ahead and, I want to move that over here. So in order to do that, what I want to do here is I want to create that. Then I want to do the same thing here. So I want to create the same arc like this here, centered at Y prime. And that will generate me some points here. Okay? So this here, notice that this here is going to be A prime. This is going to match up with this here. So we go back to our original picture, right? If we go back to our imagined picture here, that's exactly what we wanted. We have that sort of setup here. So now we can kind of have it here as well. So this is going to be, in this situation here, this is going to be the same radius as step 1. Okay? That's really good. That tells us this here. Okay, so we're almost done, ladies and gentlemen. Now the problem is we just got to find B prime. We don't know where it is. Well, technically we kind of do. We kind of know where B prime kind of is. B prime is somewhere on this arc. Where on the arc? Well, we're not exactly sure. But remember that we kind of copied some segments already, right? We copied YA and YB here back to our picture. YA and YB have already been copied and moved to a new position. There's only one segment left to copy, and that's AB. So let's do that here. So now, what we're going to do here is now I'm going to set my radius to AB here. So I can use my compass here. You can set the radius to AB like so. And you want to be very careful with this here. Obviously, the better your tools are, the more precise your drawing will be. I don't mind if your constructions are a little bit off, but do your best with them here. Try to be as precise as you can. So you'll note that I do a construction here by creating that little arc like so, right there. And then I'm going to move that over here. So I'm going to do something like this where I have A prime. I want it to center there, and then I want to duplicate that over here. And that creates this thing here. Okay, so as you can see here, this is going to be step 3, and there's going to be radius AB here. And that, well, let's see here. We've demonstrated AB by copying AB over here. We create B prime, and now I can finish off the construction by simply connecting these and doing like that. Okay? And that pretty much finishes it off here. And then we can just sort of construct that line like so. Okay? So notice how in this situation we kind of almost have 4 steps here, but it works out very, very nicely. Okay? And then, this is just draw to finish. Okay, so forget this here. It's actually that. Just draw to finish it here. and we're in good shape. And now, because of the way we set it up, we know that this is guaranteed to be congruent to what we had before because we constructed two congruent triangles by side, side, side.